let's start with you, Honorable Ssemujju. The president came up, gave an apology. He read it together with Mrs. Museveni, and they apologized. The way I first saw it, I thought they apologized to the Baganda and the nation, but Moses Beranga has taken quite a lot of time to explain to me that he was not apologizing to the Baganda, he was not apologizing to Ugandans, he was apologizing just the way we do in church. I'm not yet so sure how Moses was describing it. I don't know if you understood.
Yeah, and I agree with him.
Okay.
There was no apology.
Oh.
I watched the video. First, if he was apologizing as a head of state, I don't think they would jointly do it with his wife, because the wife became a minister recently. So the failures of Museveni as a president cannot be jointly shared. Maybe if you only want to confirm that the wife and Museveni have been ruling Uganda jointly.
I think Honorable Ssemujju, because he's not a Christian, he's not conversant with the concept of Trinity.
But Oscar,
I had not thought about that.
The text that both of them were reading, you actually saw Museveni struggling, sometimes stammering, and then the wife would read the word. I think Museveni was there essentially to raise the profile of our daughter's church and function, not because he went there to apologize or to do something else. You see, Museveni has placed his children fairly well. One is supposed to head the army. I think the area where he has been missing is the church. So he has a daughter who has become a bishop. So as your brother heads the army, you go and lead the church. The mother is in education. That's what I saw in Kolo, not Museveni who was. First of all, Museveni is a very stubborn person. I remember one time he came to Makerere and we were asking him to test. The man refused, so we were shouting at him as he was shouting back. So when we kept quiet, he said, now that I have defeated you, now I can test. So you deal with a very stubborn person. Even in old age, he continues being stubborn. But because parents love their children, this looks like something that was prepared by Bishop. Is she Archbishop or Bishop Dombo, who work for Museveni? Is the daughter Archbishop or Bishop? You have no job if you don't know.
I'm not a member of that faith, so I wouldn't know.
She's a pastor.
She's a pastor.
At now you have said you don't know, now you are. So whichever capacity she has, I think she prepared this for the parents to come and yeah, so that's why Museveni had trouble reading. Maybe
the words, okay.
Yeah. So there was no apology to anyone, but there was a Museveni guided to read what appeared like an apology as a way of raising the profile of that particular event, but also the church, the church of his daughter. That's what I saw.
Okay. Yeah. What about Katuntu?
First of all, I don't think the president had read that document beforehand, because I could see him like struggling reading it. And you know, it is a little bit unusual, because President Museveni moves away from even written speeches, official written, and
even a taxi.
I said, by this one, I don't believe in it. These people, they write this. So sometimes when you're writing a document for President Museveni, he can disown it. This particular one, there was no opportunity to disown, much as he could have disagreed with the content of it, but he was given the document read. However, because I watched him read the text, but I also watched when he was speaking off cuff. There were two different things. When he was talking about, why they have not allowed, he called them chaplains in the army barracks and so on.
They're actually there. He banned it.
He told me this. He said that this is just absolute. He used some word. What? They were not value addition, so we couldn't allow and so on. He went actually on the offensive, and that is the typical President Museveni, because he what he believes in, he says it. This one you could see, and no, there was no emotion in him he was so flat. You need to look at his face, and somebody just ambushed him, gave him, and then he read it. So whatever was in that statement, I think it was more about the author than the people, than President Museveni who read it. And remember, these are born again. Born again have the new way of thinking and so on, which is a bit not ordinary like Dombo and me or other people. But about confessions and apologies, Ssemujju knows this. For us, our face, we call it tauba.
Yeah.
Tauba is an English word where
Patents.
yeah, patents. You have to do it and so on. And I think the one who wrote the author of that document, that's what he had in he or she had in
So
mind.
you think the author wanted to apologize to the Baganda?
With whatever content was there, that's what the author had in mind.
Nice. Benjamin Katana, you have brought even the idea of Trinity, and Ssemujju has taken it further, saying that even conquer the religion.
Yeah. And it's very accurate.
Really?
First of all, you there are many dimensions to it. One is that when he's speaking to when you look at the whole idea, that church has been conducting regional, I don't know if they are called conventions.
Yeah. This is what Moses told me. Regional
And,
missions
yes.
across the country.
But these
And in
missions,
these missions, the parents, like Christians do, while in prayer, ask God to forgive them their sins.
and they are close to ecumenical, only that I have not seen the Muslims participating. But you see the Anglican bishops are involved. So you ask yourself if this if this church of the daughter is part of the Anglican establishment. But when they are advertising pastors, they advertise the bishops of the Anglican church. So I believe it is largely another avenue of extending the patronage network. And the Pentecostal church now is quite a big constituency. And so when he speaks to them in that sense, he's also scoring some political points. But I also want to agree that I don't think this was a mere Karipa moment. In Runyankore, the Catholics say, that you accept, I'm a sinner, you accept your sins, but repentance, but when, that's what they're saying, the mere Karipa. But when you are confessing your sins, for example, if you are to, what sins has you committed against the Baganda now? And there has been a debate about the many young people, political prisoners that are in jail, many young people that have been tortured and are recovering. If you are coming to make a confession, he should have gone ahead to order for the release of all political prisoners at Kororo. That would have been evidence to show that indeed he has reached his poor moment. His Damascus point had come. But I don't think this was it. But two is that Museveni might be a leader, might be a general, might be many things, but he's also a human being. In the sense that human beings, and someone has mentioned that normally he drifts away from the script, but when it is the children that are involved, your children, and especially you are an 80-year-old person, you tend to please them more than you want to even do what you think is the right thing. Especially when you have children that are bickering over your estate. And
Before you die.
And you must keep them guessing as to the air is. Sometimes on the smallest of things you want to make concessions and let them get away with whatever they want to get away with.
When there is an avenger.
Well, yeah, but also the other thing that I have observed about him is that many times for him he's not bothered. He's not bothered by what people who don't support him think about him. He's bothered by what people who support him think about him. So for people who don't support him, he can easily rubbish it. I say that is these are disoriented, they are blah blah blah. But there is a constituency that he always wants to present himself as a man on a mission, as a man that is doing good things, but who is being let down by the Emmanuel Dombos here and the rest. And so when he even attempts to speak in that direction, he's trying to project an image to his supporters that he's a humble human being. He's even not taking responsibility for his mistakes, but for the mistakes of his people like Emmanuel Dombo and Duncan and the rest. So I think he was also using that platform to communicate to his supporters that I'm a humble human being. There could have been mistakes, but not done by myself. But as a leader, I take responsibility and I apologize.
Yes. Let me go to Duncan here. The apology.
Two things here. Number one, like Honorable Ssemujju said, the president did not seem to own the document, neither the words on the document. It looked so strange to him, and it was very uncharacteristic of him. He's not a man who is easily intimidated in two things, but he being the daughter, he had to succumb. But apology without action, it's no apology. Like Katana here has said, if the president was genuine in his apology, it would be followed by some reforms. For example, he would have talked about, yes, Honorable Dombo is laughing. I keep telling them that we are coming in to reform the NRM. Honorable Dombo is in the...
If I were NRM, his opening remarks have worn me down.
His opening remarks have won you.
Honorable Dombo is in the NRM of yesteryears.
Abasisi.
The status quo, which we are now trying to rearrange.
Do you need money urgently? Have you paid for your child institution?
Say, Honorable Dombo, you guys have grown. Don't leave us with problems. We must coexist. We must coexist with the Ssemujju Ngandas. We must coexist with the Katana group in Kaveri. So if the president was genuine about his apology, there should have been reforms. He would have talked about, because the issue, he said we apologize to Uganda. There are all these questions about Ed Mutwe and others. People call them political prisoners. He would have made a comment on those and other emerging issues that are causing problems in the central region. But he would have talked about this JAT that people keep talking about, that is the one committing some of these crimes and so forth. Made some changes in command and things, but the apology was not backed by any action. So it was just passing wind. So it is like Honorable Ssemujju here coming to us in Nigeria. I've been his voter for the last so many years. I've lived in Nigeria since I left university. And telling us that he's apologizing for the bad roads. And the roads are not done.
Overstaying.
He hasn't yet overstayed per se. but Ssemujju coming to us in China, and he says that he apologizes for the bad roads, and there is not even an inch of the road that is done. It is as good as you know, not saying anything.
Or not when I'm with you.
Exactly. So number two, there's something that Katana has hinted on, you know, and Honorable Dombo, the Avenger thing. One of the...
Are you PLU?
No, I'm not PLU,
okay,
for the record. But you can see there are some bit of conflicts. He hosted one of the actors recently. One of the contenders says, you know, some people are in the basement running Runyankore. The other now organizes a function where he says, we apologize for putting you in the basement. So there is that angle to it. One talks about Bachwezi, and says one says Bachwezi, you know, our ancestors, they guide us, they do what. The other comes and says we must do away with these ungodly things and so forth. So there is also that contestation that should be brought into perspective.
Thank you. So, Honorable Dombo, you are speaking. Pardon?
People who are not NRM allowed to vote.
In the election?
Yeah, because
In
I
the
want, to
local
give,
election.
I want to give him my vote against Walio Munsi.
That he can become his supervisor.
So that he becomes Dombo's supervisor.
You can become his manager. Oscar,
But now he's a young man, but he has said a few things. I saw some priests responding in that manner, saying that if you know this is, you said you know about the Catholic Church. When you go to confession and you apologize, you mention the crime, and some priests have said that, and yet this apology was lacking in what exactly for.
first of all, I know President Museveni is not a Catholic. So, issues of faith are doctrinal.
I've never seen so many eyes on Emmanuel Dombo.
And
looking at you and silent.
And the issues are doctrinal. So, what the priests said, I read part of what Father Misala said. And but I said to President Museveni, why do people confide in priests when they go to confess and they do it privately? Because that's a doctrinal issue. It is done in the Catholic Church. Yet in the many faith,
Maybe point of information.
just a moment. In the many faith,
Let the man
in
speak.
many faith, people go before God.
In the Anglican Church, we do it in the open. You give testimony in the open.
But
They call it okwetisa.
No, Catholic Church, you go to the booth.
you got the booth where the priest is. There is a reason why they chose to do that. But let us look to me, who is a Christian and a believer. When you go to the Bible, you can see King David. President Museveni is not the first person who confesses his sin. And by the way, I haven't met President Museveni to have a discussion with him, to have a depth understanding of why and how it came to this. But reading a copy of what he read before
That sort of question.
before the church, reading what President Museveni read before the church, you see that he did it on his own behalf as a person. He did it on behalf of his family. He did it on behalf of the people he governs with, and on behalf of the country that he leads. In the church, when you go to pray, I don't know how it is done in Islam, but for us every morning when you go to church, or whenever you pray, and the Bible says pray without ceasing. In the Islamic faith, they say pray 5 times a day. During prayer, you do 3 things. The first thing is that you acknowledge and thank God for the gifts, one of life and the things he has done for you. The 3, you repent of your sin, which you could have committed even between that short period, between that prayer and the last time you prayed. Then thirdly, you pray so that God can offer you more blessings and gifts. So to me, I know that President Museveni was doing the ritual that we do every day when we go to church. But because he's the president of Uganda, because he's the president of Uganda, he has to elevate this to a higher height, and he demonstrates by being an example to the rest of the people. Just a few days ago, President Museveni was meeting the family of Commander Eregu, who commanded UPA, and really almost he killed many UPDF or NRM soldiers. He met the family of Tito Okello and all those people he fought with when he was in the bush. He has met the family of President Obote, who he fought with when he was in the bush himself, and President Obote was. He came on radio and apologized for the death of Zebra, who the UPDF killed accidentally. So this is not a new and isolated thing that President Museveni is doing, but looking at the positive side of it, that we must see that, like the young man said, this is the trend that we should go. Let each of you go back to your places and apologize to the people you have offended. That would be a better thing to be talking about than discussing whether Museveni meant this or didn't mean it. Me, I haven't met him. I haven't asked him. I don't know why he said it. But using common sense, you do say that this is the right thing to do, and we should emulate him because it is biblical. It is also common sense, and it is a good thing to do for humanity. And once you have done this, like this young man has said, Mr. Gaba, I want to tell you that in the recent elections, the young people have taken over.
That's why you should actually be...
The young people in the Butaleja. The young man who was elected as chairman of the movement is a student of UCU doing law. He's a chairman of NRM. And this is now, we must go to nurture him, but also we must give respect. We must also give respect that the young people are emerging, so we must help them to emerge and take full responsibility. But even when you go to parliament, Ssemujju a few years ago was amongst the youngest, but he's now among the oldest. The parliament has young people. So, in recognizing that this is happening, President Museveni, whatever he has done in this country is legacy. Now he has come up to say, let us heal.
NUP has young people.
Let us heal and mend fences. And for him, he has communicated to his God other people's views notwithstanding, because it is him who said it. For us, one there, I wasn't even invited for the prayer service in Kololo, but at least he communicated with God. The people of Uganda have heard. Let them take leave.
Dombo, I thought only the wife was the one communicating to God. Even Museveni has started.
No, he does very often.
But they better meet God.
But one time he told us, Oscar, one time President Museveni joked. He said that when Mama Janet wanted to go and contest, she received a revelation from God. But God said God did not care to invite him to be around when the message was being delivered. So, that was humorous. That was humorous, but
Honorable Katuntu, to have final word on this one.
Well, I think we are reading too much. To me, the way I see things, it was more about the author of that message. And the author of that message, the author of the confession, if you may call it so, had a message, and that message is out there. How we interpret it will remain to everybody's sense of judgment. Though in my honest view and well considered opinion, it had nothing to do with President Museveni.
Right. So let's start on some legalese and political. Honorable Nalukoola, thrown out of Parliament. Honorable Katuntu, did you expect that?
You see, in a court of law, there is no draw. There is always a winner. And elections are such that sometimes we may make one or two silly mistakes which may be interpreted by court as what we call electoral offense. And anybody can jump on that electoral offense because you just need only one action and one electoral offense, and the elections are nullified. So did I expect that? If evidence was there. I am only surprised how fast it came. The quality of the judgment itself is not that one to talk about anyway, though, because to me, if it is this sort of contentious election and which has attracted a lot of public attention, the judge should have been so much thorough in analyzing the evidence before him so that anybody reading that judgment would come to a conclusion. But he seems to have nullified the judgment on two grounds. The election on two grounds. If I've read the summary of the judgment, I've not read the entire judgment. One, that there was a disenfranchisement of 16,000 of 4. However, when you look at the facts, how did it arise? Which I think he did not go into. One, the Electoral Commission nullified those partial elections because, one, there had been more votes than sometimes even the registered voters on those particular polling stations. There was evidence of bulk staffing and so on. So that alone And one party who was the petitioner was the one who gave it of that, but then he jumped on it. It's a little bit contradictory. To me, he would have gone into the detail. What happened? How did this arise? Which he doesn't go into in detail. Then the other one was about the electoral fence. I think that Honorable Nalukoola campaign.
Campaigned on the day.
On the day.
At a school.
At a school. I'm not so sure whether that is an electoral fence or it's a breach of the regulations and so on. But anyway, whatever said, technically you can throw out a member of parliament because the law is on your side, but does it change the political fortunes of anybody in that particular constituency? And to me, I thought people would be working towards, okay, there's an election in the next 1 year. How do we rearrange ourselves? Or you anger the voter such that at the next election, they are ready to come up and say, by the way, this is our choice and so on. What I also think, finally, before I get off the microphone, is that, one, there is not going to be a by-election because they have issued already a notice of appeal. By the time you dispose of that appeal, I can see would be within the 6 months within which you cannot hold an election. And if I were a strategist of any political player in that place, I would be looking for 2026.
I think Abdu has pretty much broken down the whole thing. Well, like he mentioned, when a matter is before court, it can take either way. So surprised or not surprised is a hard question to answer. But what has created a lot of debate about this particular case is the context. The context beginning from the manner in which the elections were conducted, the polling day, what transpired, and I'm glad he talked about the defranchisement and what occasioned it. Because at those particular polling stations, even the exercise of tallying was disrupted by gangs which were led by 2 ministers guarded by police. So the question has been, how can you, because now the affected person in this judgment is Nalukoola and the people of Kawempe North, the victims, again also victimized by court. That cannot be justice, and I think that is
we call it double jeopardy.
Double jeopardy. Have been punished twice. So I think that's where the problem has been, because even when you look at issues like campaigning on the polling day, you know what they're accusing him of doing, that he told some people, he shook hands with some people and told them temulia rukemumanyi gabantu. So that was construed to mean campaigning. So there have been a lot of questions, and while we always demand that matters be handled expeditiously, I think in this particular case it was more than, they say justice delayed is justice denied, but also justice rushed is justice crushed. That in a matter of a few days, even when the lawyers would go and they tell them tomorrow, they were even surprised when they were called to come and receive the judgment. And because they thought they still had like a week for the judgment to come out, and they were told the judgment is ready and we are delivering it on email. That's what I heard from the lawyers. So there are so many questions relating to what transpired. And the question, like has been mentioned, and many people have been asking, that why is Nalukoola? Why doesn't NUP encourage Nalukoola not to appeal and go to the polls immediately so that people can vote for him overwhelmingly? But we all know what transpired in that by-election. We know how many people were injured. We know how many people went to jail. We know how much money was spent on that exercise, both by the Electoral Commission and the parties. So it would not be wise to rush into an election when you have 6 months. Because when you have 6 months to the general elections, what will you achieve? But number two is that the Honorable Nalukoola has a responsibility as a person who was voted for by the people. Once, you know, when you go to campaign, the people say we are giving you our votes, but we will protect them because rigging has also become an issue. So he has a responsibility to fight for their victory up to the very end. And the appropriate avenue, whether you like it or not, is the Court of Appeal. But also it will give...
So is that what you're going to do?
Yes, he has already put in a notice of appeal. And I think that is the next course of action. By implication, he will remain representing the people until the Court of Appeal makes a decision.
Why did he have to put it in very early? Could I put it in at the end of June?
Well, I think I am not part of the team that was handling this matter, but I believe that is just the initial stage. Then there is the memorandum and the rest. So I believe that they have a good strategy that they will follow through. But the whole judgment has left more questions than answers as to whether indeed the court acted in the interest of justice or in the interest of political expedience.
Okay, some listeners are struggling with our online platforms, but there's a listener here who says there's online radio box, so try that one. Duncan Abigaba, people on X, on Twitter, formerly X, formerly Twitter, saying, what have you given Duncan Abigaba with that kind of laugh? And then the other one said, this is Isaac Twesije. When Duncan Abigaba was laughing, I thought it was a technical glitch in the studio. Tell him to refrain from over-laughing. So I have warned you, Duncan Abigaba, from over-laughing. But on to the microphone. Nalukoola was...
Yes.
Were you surprised as well? Was it worthy?
No. I was not surprised because what Honorable Dombo and the team at the NRM Secretariat are trying to do is what the white man calls to save face. Because
necessarily?
There has been this talk of a lot of money pumped into the election. None of us, I think, has the actual figure, but speculation puts it at 1.5 billion. Some people have mentioned 2 billion.
By NRM?
By NRM. So when you have invested over $1 billion or 2 in an election, a smaller by election, and then you lose it, and then you also have people who were just thumping, deploying members, when even the law, I think the law does not allow any weapon, let it be a knife inside a polling station. And then you have people deploying members inside the polling station on the polling day. And then you have all these...
Of a small by-election.
Small by-election. And then you lose that by-election. And you also have the president to come and he made some statement about the election. You see that there is nobody in NRM, right from the secretariat to the presidency, who was willing to accept this defeat. So to save face is you hide this defeat in the court processes, because you can cajole the judiciary, they rule in your favor, buy you some time.
Duncan, did you say you are NRM?
Yes, I am NRM.
Okay. Just clarify.
Yeah, that's the truth. You see, the difference.
He should be then representing NRM every Saturday.
I think so.
The difference between me and Dombo is not reading the room. Dombo belongs to the class that thinks, for example, with all that is happening, that they can win an election in Kampala. Dombo, you can't win an election in Kampala. That's a fact. With all that is happening, it doesn't matter the amount of money you put.
Dombo may even have an escort outside.
Absolutely. I saw somebody walking around with a gun.
So you are right. He may not be on the ground.
They cannot win an election. We cannot win an election in Kampala, no matter the amount of money we put, no matter the amount of deployment we make, because you have to read the times. Yeah. So NRM can cajole the judiciary to buy time, go in the court processes so that another by-election does not happen until the general election. You know, a defeat in the general election is not as painful as a defeat in a by-election. Because in a by-election, you have full deployment of every available force, including the president who went there to campaign, to the entire secretariat team of Dombo and the Honorable Richard Todongo.
To be fair, this might be the first by-election that NRM has lost in this election period.
But the others, they were just cheating.
You see, there were some other by-elections. We had a by-election in Kayunga. Votes were counted up to, I think, to midnight. The margin were very big in favor of my brother's candidate here, Benjamin. By the time we woke up, it was another story. we had another by-election.
The votes kept coming.
We had another by-election, I think, in Bukedia.
Yes.
And I think that by-election in Bukedia, even the president intervened to have the DPC and the entire security apparatus arrested. So that those are the elections they talk about, the by-election that NRM has been winning. But the ground has not been fair. So I think in this by-election, it's just NRM buying time through the court processes. But my last point on the by-election is I want to thank NUP for taking the right decision to say, let's not go back to this election. Let's rather appeal and buy time, because that by-election had a lot of human cost and other costs. Many people were arrested. Somebody could have died. Some people could have died if we had had this by-election.
That were hurt.
Yes, sure. So they took the right decision to say, let's take the judicial route and go into the appealing process and so forth. This by-election in Kawempe, I think, was as difficult as the by-election we had when I was a child in high school. There was a by-election in Kanungu when Honorable Mamba was Minister for Defense versus James Mzingsgarga, a rich man of the FDC. And because I was studying in Mbara High School and we were near the road going to Kabare Kunjer Kanungu, on the eve of the election, there were so many members going into that direction of the election. You could think there was war. So this is the second election where I've seen a huge deployment of the military. Exactly. This is the second by-election after the Mambas versus James Garga, where I've seen a war zone in a parliamentary election. So I think NUP took the right decision not to go back into the election but to go to court.
Honorable Dombo, your comment is opposition has always asked for a quick judgment. So
absolutely, because every time I listen to Ugandans, I keep wondering what exactly a good Ugandan should do when you become a leader. Because one, many Ugandans have been accusing NRM of not believing in the rule of law. So the processes that happened in Kawempe gave us an opportunity as a party to go to the courts of law, so that we use the law as is to resolve an issue which they themselves are acknowledging that the process wasn't good. If the law prevents even going with a knife and the member goes there, is that a good election? So if that election is not nullified, won't it be an incentive for people to do that for future elections? These are the reasons why we went to court, so that the processes, really, looking at the election as it was in Kawempe, there is nothing to say the process was fair, and everybody would see that the process affected the outcome. Irrespective of the language that the judge used in writing his judgment, even a blind person would see that actually the election in Kawempe was not done in accordance with the law. Secondly, when you interview some of the witnesses that we interacted with, you just don't know the molestation and how people were harassed in their respective areas. People were forced to move out of Kawempe. People were chased off the houses that they were renting. So to us, the outcome of this judgment demonstrates that there is rule of law in Uganda. And the decision by our brothers from the National Unity Platform shows that there is a legal process which can go up to the end. For us, we are very excited and very ready to go back for the elections if we could go. But if the law requires that they want to exhaust the processes as for us, we shall wait for that time. If the resolution is given when there is an ample time for us to go back to the elections, that is something that we shall pleasantly accept to go. Wouldn't mind losing an election. But how do we lose an election? We would want to lose an election when the process is very clear and when everybody acknowledges the outcome, that is the will of the people. But what happened in Kawempe is not the will of the people. You saw nomination day, how Nalukoola was wrapped up. How would that one benefit an NRM candidate? And the question is, who did it? Because up to now we are still asking, we want the investigation to let us know who made that order. Because it affected us. The perception of the population, really, that thing affected the Madam Nambi and the outcome of the elections. Finally, I don't know why there is an issue which, Honorable Katuntu, perhaps in the future when you have an opportunity to reform the law, and this is my personal opinion, it's not an opinion of NRM, but it's an opinion which I have shared with many members of parliament always, that when we go for general elections, why can't we amend the law that a party that wins a constituency wins it for 5 years? Period. When you win it for 5 years, when there is an opportunity for a by-election, the party that won an election should do their internal democracy and give us a candidate.
No, people don't vote for the parties. Yeah, we are not under parliamentary system.
No. It is the law. You make the law. It's not just as a system. Ours, that is a dual system. It combines both. But it is what you people wish to to implement. If you factored it in the law, what dangers would it have? So
if I'm independent like me,
then that one will be vacant.
No, that one will be vacant because my son is because independent, my daughter should.
Because an independent is individual. So when the individual dies, it is vacant.
He's giving an opinion.
This is an opinion which you should really reflect on, so that in the future we don't bother the population and the cost of elections. Agaba is talking about the 1.5 billion or so that NRM could have spent. But there's a lot of money which was spent through the Electoral Commission. Even the National Unity Platform lost the money.
True.
Yet if it was just an internal process of them identifying somebody who would take over, it would have been a cheaper process and would have saved all Ugandans this altercation that has come up. But that is food for thought.
Yeah, it is more complicated.
Which our people
because
could
you
look
could
at
challenge that the party didn't win. So were you involved? Are you one of the promoters, as Abigaba is alleging?
Promoting what?
NRM in Kawempe.
Kawempe, we went in for campaigns as a party. And the party has a structure for which I speak. I'm part of the structure of NRM, wherever NRM is, even when I may not
some money.
Even when I may not be there physically.
Yeah.
It is whoever will be there speaking on behalf of NRM will be doing it on my behalf.
So did you sit at the secretariat and say, this one we have handed to Balam to manage, Honorable Balam to manage?
No, every time we have an election, we have reinforcements from various people, others volunteering, others deliberately called, like RDCs are called at times to give us support. This is something that usually happens, and as much as they don't participate in issues which do not offend the law,
No, Katana raises a very important point.
Yes, ask it.
You don't find it irregular that RDCs are recalled from Guru Mbari to come and reinforce a party in a by-election in Kawempe. They are supposed to be civil servants.
Why? Who says that?
The Constitution, Article 03.
They are not civil servants, but RDCs are political And this happens in every government, by the way.
These are in the constitution. They actually assigned by the constitution.
Absolutely. Even those are appointed by government, like ministers are.
So you mean judges should...
Ministers are not.
Judges are also appointed by the president. So they
No, but they are not political. Judges are not. This is a political, and they are appointed to protect the manifesto of the party.
Not the party. They are supposed to be representatives of the central government.
They are part of the state infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Not the party.
They are part of the state infrastructure.
Not the party
They are
infrastructure.
facilitated by government.
That's why they are paid
but
salary.
they are appointed. That's why.
If you are an RDC and you want to run for a political office, you must first resign.
Absolutely. You must.
Yes. So you cannot say that they are political appointees like cabinet ministers.
Let me
resign.
Let me tell you.
Even judges are appointed by the president.
Let me tell you.
You cannot call them to represent the party.
RDCs, that one you may want to say that, but I want to tell you the fact. And this happens in all governments. And this happens. You listen.
It doesn't make it regular.
Just a moment.
This is why we are running. This is why we are running to.
Just hold it for one. Okay, yeah, go.
This is why we are running to change these Dombos and the team at the secretariat. No, Honorable Dombo, listen. You have a party structure in Kawempe. Yes. You have, yes, from the parish to the sub-county to the villages. You cannot empower and deploy that party structure. You're calling RDCs from Barara to reinforce. Reinforce what? What are the chairpersons of the party doing in
You think they are not deployed?
No.
You think they are not deployed?
Dombo, you cannot come here really condoning irregularities and lawlessness. You're breaking the constitution by involving RDCs in party politics.
The team respond.
I want to tell you that in all governments, be it the United States of America,
you concentrate on
there are offices that are politically appointed. Yes. And those political offices expire with the expiry of the presidents.
It is true.
Right now, the ambassadors who have resigned immediately. President Joe Biden.
Honorable Dom,
they are public officers, but they do political work.
You are sidestepping the question, Honorable Dom. But the question is, those public people, why should they be involved in a electoral campaign for a party?
No, that's a deployment. You know, RDCs are deployed in their respective districts to manage security.
Can I?
Yes, just a moment. Let me give the answer first.
I just want to know whether that's the official position.
No, let me give the answer.
Is this the official position? You want to go on record?
Answer, ask.
I'm asking, is this what you are saying? It is the official position.
Yes. What I'm telling you is what happens.
Answer the question. Is this the official position?
I've answered for him, yes.
Say you are the spokesperson. Is this the official position?
From the party, yes. Absolutely.
I hope you are not quoted.
No, I'm telling you, but you know it, that RDCs are appointed by the president in order to execute the work of the party. Yeah. The manifesto belongs to the party.
So Abdul, away from
whether you take it or you want to leave it or you want to leave it.
You have argued your case.
We should help you.
Honorable Dombo, you have argued your case.
Between the party
but Abdul, Moses Pieranga puts to you, the judge in the ruling cited the Katinti versus Sita in the Sebaru and the Electoral Commission where the election was nullified. And one of the grounds the appeal court nullified the election in the Katinti case were results from 9 polling stations with a total of 5,000 voters who were not counted. It's after that nullification that Bobi Wine offered himself as a candidate and he won the by-election.
You see, disenfranchisement can be reason to nullify an election. There is no doubt about that. But the problem is, if the person running to court is actually responsible for the disenfranchisement, I think the court should have gone into it. You see, in law we say, he who seeks equity must come with clean hands. And the court should have been in a position to interrogate. And I was listening to my brother Emmanuel Dombo here, and I was feeling very, very sad to say, yes, Nalukoola was beaten. We want to know why did they beat Nalukoola? The members were there. Why did they take the members there? The victim is actually now responsible for the judgment. I mean, this level of impunity, it doesn't make sense at all. There is a victim, and you are responsible for what happened. And then you go and say, by the way, these things happened, which you did. So let this victim again suffer again. To me, if I were seated like a justice who is trying to mete out justice, there are things I would have interrogated. Not that I have an opinion here and there, but I would have interrogated those particular issues. Because you see, and everybody tells you that the elections in Kawempe were not free and fair. Correct. Who was responsible for this? Was it Nalukoola? Who benefited from it? Is it Nalukoola? Who intended to benefit for it? Intended to benefit from it? Was it Nalukoola? In any case, is it isolated that it happened in Kawempe, but it does not happen in other constituencies? And there is a litany. I was the first person to win a by-election under the NRM government in 2007. I know what it means to win a by-election.
Even
against national resistance movement. I know. I was a victim. I know what I went through.
Moses Peranga is telling you,
I went through.
Dombo, RDCs are not supposed to be deployed in by-elections. That's your...
No. You know why I was asking Dombo that question? Is this the official position? And the Honorable Emmanuel Dombo said it, that is the official position of government and the party.
Not government, he said from the party.
That's the official position. And I'm telling you, at some point, Dombo's statement will be very useful. That is the party position, that's the official position.
So, Honorable Ssemujju, in conclusion, we need to conclude this show.
Or else we deploy RDCs here.
I think the context of this judgment, either Abdu or Katana mentioned it. Museveni is even in the meetings of NRM, leave alone coming to posture to the public, but even in internal meetings of NRM, Museveni was telling NRM people that we were cheated in Kawempe. In meetings, he says we were cheated. He started calling military people because they had assigned military people per electoral area. Not NRM chairperson or RDC, but military people under Damulira and Major Kutesa. So in his meetings, he was calling Captain Dombo, what happened in Karerwe. Then they would brief him. Now he's before NRM meeting, said I'm investigating. And his motivation that he communicated in those meetings of NRM was that if they don't address Kawempe, people will stop seeking NRM sponsorship around Kampala here. So his motivation is that a defeat like the one of Kawempe coming in those circumstances will actually, as the aspiring NRM vice chairman has said, and rightly so, will make NRM people believe that here you cannot win, which is a fact. So Museveni wants people to seek NRM sponsorship even in areas where they will not win, and they do so because they know the state will intervene. So the state intervened in Kawempe, brought Mamba, beat up people, beat up journalists, but NRM remained weak. So that's what Museveni is trying to address strategically. So the Dombos, and I sympathize with the Dombo because he was my commissioner in Parliament, one of the most intelligent MPs, at least during his time. For him to be arguing like a baram, I think Museveni is a very bad man. Like a job, Dombo's job should be given to Baram.
Baram is a minister of Uganda.
Yeah, but you see, Dombo in Parliament as an MP was fantastic. They should give him another job that doesn't bring him to argue the way he's arguing it. This job is good for Baram Dombo. Because how, Dombo on earth, can you say that Nalukoola was beaten on nomination and therefore his victory should be nullified? Have you heard what Dombo said? That Nalukoola was beaten on nomination, therefore his victory should be nullified. Really? You come.
We're talking about the
He's sitting in
but
that's what you have said. So therefore, Oscar.
Soon to be, yes. Okay. Last sentence.
So the when these facts are presented before any judge, that judge must be very courageous now to consider the context under which the evidence is brought, because that evidence on any other day would be used to nullify an election. But this particular one, where the the person who has come to the court is the one who was responsible for it. I don't know if we have had a case like that happened before, that someone goes to cheat an election and you fail and then you go to court and they say, I was not successful in cheating. Can you nullify?
Thank you.
I'm waking up to this.
Duncan Anigaba, one sentence conclusion, and your laugh is catching social media.
I have seen actually.
You said it is maybe because of coffee. I don't know.
I don't know. But, you know, my former classmates in Russia sometimes ask me for a recording of my laughter. It's a sensation. I think I should. It's a trademark. I think I should start charging for it.
Okay.
Yeah, but
just a sentence. Yes.
Yeah, but a sentence is Honorable Dombo and the team. I think this is there is a lot of apathy. There's a lot of apathy. There is a lot of fatigue.
Yeah.
There is a lot of fatigue in the NRM. This is why Honorable Dombo comes here to justify deployment of the state apparatus. People who are supposed to be part of the state, the RDCs, in the internal NRM processes, because Honorable Dombo and the team have made sure that the party becomes completely dysfunctional.
Thank you.
So we are coming in to make sure that we revive the party structures and
Benjamin
so forth.
Katana, one sentence.
Yeah, so I think this discussion summarizes the challenge that we are dealing with as a nation, that the NRM has been around for a long time and has crossed the line. There is no line between the party and the state. So when they look at the judges, they look at the soldiers, they look at the policemen and the other civil servants, they see an extension of the political machinery of the NRM. And that's part of why we are dealing with the problems that we are dealing with, that the state institutions cannot function properly because they are politicized.
Honorable Dombo, one sentence.
I've been in a number of by-elections, and I've seen RDCs formally deployed to manage security, to ensure that people of Uganda go and vote have a free and fair election. The RDCs are part of the government's infrastructure, which is deliberately deployed by government to ensure that the disenfranchised Ugandans, who would be because of the threats that happen, that these RDCs beef up the security so that Ugandans come and vote. This is part of what
giving another narrative.
This is basically
run away because you had fallen into a trap. Now you are running away to sanitize it.
That is because NRM doesn't deploy them. But what I told you,
you have just said it so. You forgot what you said 1 minute ago.
Just listen. What I've told you is that RDCs are political. RDCs are political, and they are appointed deliberately and deployed to protect, to ensure that the manifesto of the party is fulfilled.